Today we will open a pack, slowly and truly look at the cards while we are playing out the small start of a small Dungeons and Dragons campaign. I really am loving the concept right now, and I love how this pack could inspire such a nice game. Our adventure starts at an inn, like most adventures do. This time though, we start with a very famous bard who was asked to fulfill another wish. A wish for her sister. The soul knife spy had been caught for another one of her crimes. If she had been caught for every one of her crimes, she would have never been free. But now, the city's constables saw her having to intern with a cleric as enough of a punishment. Of course, the spy had chosen a moon-blessed cleric for her internship, probably wishing another being of the night would be a great friend, understanding her nightly adventures. Our adventure starts with a wish. Wishes are a really strong concept, because in a way they could be anything. Let us look at the flavor text of this card. If you had just one wish, what would it be? Gold or angel song? Finding a lost love? Or finding your way back home? Let me sing a song about one wish that came true. By Eliwick Tumblestrom. I think it's appropriate to have Eliwick singing for a fire, which stands for energy, from which wishes could become reality. Eliwick's frog friend looks with great interest at the hero's moment that plays out before him. Eliwick's eyes look longingly at this adventure full of emotions. These are eyes in which we can see anything, and Eliwick has the power to make anything come true, as is the case with our adventurers. Our first adventurer is a spy who has been on the wrong path for a long time. This one first sparks our interest because of her weapon, the soul knife. My psychic blade cuts the mind and severs the thoughts. Even if you survive, you'll never remember I was here. So this spy has the power in her hands to change minds and erase them in ways. This makes it even more impressive for her to be caught. Stealing minds is often shown through drawing cards, scrying, or making your opponents discard. This spy lets you draw a card when she gets in with her knife. This spy is already seen using her soul knife as a light source for this mage's stone. Here she literally learns about the secrets in it. Her card draw might also be her ability, because she is just interested in learning magical abilities from mages. This spy might think clerics are lame versions of magicians, but she might yet learn something from her internship. Little did this spy know that this moon-blessed cleric was a devotee of Saloon, who graced her followers with wisdom and grace. In this way, this Lady of Silver was not as much a goddess of the dark night, but more of the moonlight, making this cleric an even more perfect guide to shine appropriate light on our lost soul. Much pronounced in these few words from Saloon herself. Let all on whom my light falls be welcome if they desire to be so. As the silver moon waxes and wanes, so too does all life. Trust in my radiance and know that all love alive under my light shall know my blessing. Turn to the moon and I will be your true guide. Saloon also guided a few good thieves, so she could help this soul knife spy really well. Back to our cleric, we see her ability, which is Divine Intervention, where you may look for an enchantment, or a sort of boon from the moon goddess. The art from the amazing Martha Neal shows a beautifully elegant woman blessed by the moon, while the moon shines upon her. She is holding the symbol of her patron goddess and the mace in her other hand, showing us that this cleric can definitely fight if necessary. I love the wisps of clouds around her that seem to come directly from the moon in this case. Our soul knife spy did choose wisely. Most clerics still filter out all evil, but would be way more meticulous in their efforts. The followers of the moon still allow for darkness to be. Most clerics would just shine their light to eliminate all evil, like we see in this art. The mechanic of cleric class shows us that clerics like to heal and strengthen when healed and even resurrect at times, but only when it would align with the gods they believe in. Clerics can manifest the powers of their gods, and so this moon-blessed cleric from before might not only strengthen our spy, but guide her too. But the two did not get too much time to learn together. Really soon, the cleric got to learn from the rogue when they got attacked by a skeleton at first. The cleric almost got gutted, but then the hulking bugbear came to gnaw on the live bones. Now the two could be in even more danger though, and the spy showed the cleric a way to sneak past the bugbear. Skeletons are in my mind mostly used as a really weak starting fight, so I think it's nice that this one's purpose is just to be eaten by a hulking bugbear immediately. The art from Svetlin Velenov shows us a skeleton that has seen some stuff. His shoulder guard already has 2 arrows in it, his hands seem broken for some reason. Do resurrected skeletons even break bones? The skeleton's jaw even seems way too dislodged. In a way, I even sense some doubt from our skeleton. It would not have been interesting to see our heroes fight the skeleton, as the cleric is way too suited for it, and the spy really is not. Better for them to meet a creature that they can both probably not best. Hulking Bugbear is a 3 mana 3/3 with haste and very red colors in 1 red and a red. The Bugbear is also overly simple. He is a big brute that neither of our heroes can really best. So in this case, best to get out of the way. But there is something really weird here. Bugbears often use stealth in combat. So them just picking off a goblin while 2 elves are standing near would not just do this unless they felt enraged. They also often hunt and fight in groups, not like this lone one. Still, just as the bugbear finished its prey, the adventurers could hear other skirmishes starting all around the city. There was something fishy going on other than the stench of these goblins entering a city out of nowhere. The pair had just met, but now they had these big brutes that neither of them were poised to defeat. The bugbear was alert enough to notice the two though and immediately charged. A wake of bones left from his charge. It was only then that the temperature seemed to collapse into a freezing cold, and after just seeing a bit of mist, the rogue looked up to see the Scion of Stygia standing over them. They had used a freezing spell to slow the bear down, and after that they could use a sleep charm. The Scion told the two that he had heard about them and had to show them his spellbook so that the two could learn a personal spell for the adventure ahead. The Scion said that he would aid them. Stygia is a demonic frozen realm from which you might not expect many helpers to come aid the upper worlds. This thiefling is notably just a descendant from there, though they probably bring a lot of chaotic evil energy with them. A more humanoid being from this place probably lived in Tentlin, a big city in Stygia, where trade was rather common. Although on a world full of ice you might not expect much commerce, this city was actually bustling with cold adventurers, looking for some of the many impressive tomes that were sold there. Our Scion here is very basic in his magic and does something that you would expect from a demon from an ice world, freezing things. This one has the ability Cone of Cold, for which you roll a d20 and get to tap a creature for up to a roll of 9 and get to also stop it from untapping next turn for all rolls above that. This tiefling probably has some business on the upper layers of the world. It seems like with the amount of bugbears around, a whole barrage of freezing spells might have been a lot, so this tiefling might have to use his charming sleep spell with some fun art from Sultan Burrows. In this case we see that this dragon was forced to sleep while flying, resulting in a little cartoonish crash to the ground. We see our spellcaster up ahead too. I think it is fitting that the ability of this card resembles our tiefling friend's ability perfectly, because sleeping and being frozen are practically the same thing, right? In any case, I love this chunky dragon and I hope they sleep well. Our bugbears are apparently sleeping for long enough for a small reading session. Because our tiefling shaman brought a wizard's spellbook to show a rogue and the cleric, well, it seems like he did not have enough time to look for many other gathered adventurers at this moment, with chaos breaking down all around. so he had to do a quick impromptu reading session into his book's spell. When the cleric shone her guiding light on the book, it flipped open to the right page. In game, this book will not be as random. It will allow you to choose a card from a graveyard. Then you roll for a 1 to 9 and you may cast a copy from the exiled card. For 10 to 19, you get to cast the copy for only 1 mana, and with a 20 roll, you get to copy each exiled card again and cast them for free. A really high upside, but with these I would mostly advise you to be able to use the first ability too, as it will come up really often. The beautiful art from Eris Compier shows us a book as how we imagine books to be, with a lot of drawings, papers scrambled in between and a hand casting a soft glowing blue spell over the book to properly read it, or maybe absorb some of the book's power in a way. Our adventurers are actually guided by the cleaning spells that they get to learn from this book. Finding a wizard spellbook in any adventure is really fun, as it can really warp your adventure in many ways. Definitely, if you can roll for the greatness of the spells your adventurers learn, I personally get really hungry from a roll 20 effect and would love to try it out some more. The spellbook magically opened on a page full of spells about cleaning. Just then, they heard the crazy bellman scream about the fungal corruption in the Underdeep, where apparently a Demogorgon had managed to take over the saplings there to start corrupting the Underdeep. The adventurers now knew their fate and descended into the dungeon. So it might be a bit on the nose, but you have to remember that our cleric is being guided by our goddess. Still, now we see the 3 adventurers leave towards the underground, where the moon notably does not always shine. So when we look at the swamp, we should feel relieved to see that there is still a nightly glow coming from above. The flavor of this land, which is a great feature on its own, says, "As a plague ravages the world above, you have made your way into the Underdark in search of a fungal panacea." So our adventurers mostly are looking for an end to those attacks above, but they might find a lot of treasure along the way. Still, we should know that the Underdark is actually devoid of light. All light that we see here comes from weird plants that give off light, or there must be something else very magical. In this case, I would instantly be wary. I think Piotr Dura did make a great case for a place where we know there might not be many ways out of there, but where it still feels like the right reason to venture deeper into this dungeon. Meanwhile, our spies should now slowly take over with their own skills while our cleric leads the way. There is one other important note, which is that the cleric's guidance is mostly interrupted because divination is impossible in the Underdark due to the dominant magic here from old civilizations of dark elves that lived here. Drow, they were called. It might be funny for this adventure to have 2 elves who were not Drow venture in here. Demogorgon's Clutches. An even darker piece of art where a literal shadow tries to absorb this poor man. The 3 mana sorcery lets you force your opponent to discard 2 cards, mill 2 cards and lose 2 life. The starting point of despair for any magic player. The flavor says, the good will be corrupted, the kind will be devoured, and all will be dragged into the bottomless abyss. A very fitting flavor for a place where all good is drowned out by the darkness. The Demogorgon is the prince of demons, who stands almost 6 meters tall. Still, the Demogorgon has a weakness, which is his 2 faces. I seem to see 3 in this art though. His 2 literal heads often argue, which is a staple in fantasy. I think it will be interesting to see our rogue who had to learn goodness from a cleric be tested by many incarnations of evil and an atmosphere that forces the evil to surface in any creature. The Demogorgon uses very indirect methods of driving creatures mad. He is also linked to effects where he rots away the living, so allying with saplings is not too crazy. I am really curious to see our adventurers doing better than this man and keeping themselves sane. There are 2 ways to defeat this demon. heal faster than he corrupts, which our cleric could do, or distract his 2 mines, which our spy might be great at. And then, while knowing that this might be a fatal move, our adventurer still moved towards seemingly certain doom. Mostly because the above was not too much of a friendly place either, and below might actually solve their problems. Dungeon's Descent in this dungeon module version is beautiful, although I do not really see myself using this kind of frame. At least not as a playing card, though it's nice to look at. The mechanic is pretty cool, as you need to tap your land and the legendary creature to venture into a dungeon, netting yourself maybe a 1/1, or maybe if you are doing great, you might draw a card or scry a few. Not the best land if you ask me, as this ability also costs 4 mana. I now really do not understand it. Not only that, but this land is also colorless and it enters the battlefield tapped. I do not think I have found a land anywhere that has more downside than this one. At least Ralph Horsley's art is amazing. Even though this is definitely not a land. It is nice to see our adventurer fighting a tentacle monster from above. This has nothing to do with the card yet, but we do see a big door that might perhaps lead to a dungeon that we can descend into. Am I flaming this card? No, it still looks pretty at least, and that is also important. Just when the party descended towards the deep, the ground started rumbling. For the adventurers, this was a sign that they were on the right path, but little did they know that this danger came from above. The Tarrasque had awoken once again. This is not just a creature that is huge and has protection and is really fast, even though it does look like it if we look at it from the mechanics. I mean, the demon from before was 5 meters. This one is 3 times as huge. With 50 meters or 50 feet, you might feel like this creature has nothing to do with our story so far. But this one slept in the world's core, because it does not really die. It only sleeps until it awakens again. Then we have a mentally immune, fast-digging dinosaur that instills fear. He is immune to fire and poison, and can eat a giant in one bite. It could even eat a planet if it was hungry. So please don't wake this one. Oh, it's late. Coffee, anyone? But just like the 3 adventurers were collecting their courage, Drizzt almost routinely hunted for the huge monster above. He and his companion Guinevere moved as one, their movements more alike than that of any cat-human team. Just as unlikely of a pair, but way more powerful. But could they really start anything against a world eater? Well, for one, Drizzt is a drow, much like the ones in the Underdeep, but Drizzt actually did not like their evilness. Drizzt has perfected his dual blade fighting style, as he expects perfection from himself, even though he accepts imperfections from almost anyone else. Drizzt fights almost always as if in a trance and is faster than the eye can see. Still, he could probably not hurt the Tarrasque with his abilities yet, although one of his swords is called Twinkle, so. Guinevere is Drizzt's companion panther, and although they are very loyal and have a strong heart and they can be summoned with magic, Gwen is still just a big cat that can only really physically attack, so this will not be enough either. We can see how Drizzt could deal 6 damage with his double strike and Gwen could deal an extra 4, so this might seem like an equal fight, which is great value with 5 mana against 8. But still, when the Tarrasque would get the first fight in, they would win. Perhaps Drizzt would need another huge companion to truly gain his power. Drizzt's power lets him gain +1 counters equal to the difference in power between him and the defeated creature on your side. Guinevere dying would not do, but we see Drizzt get really angry at any of his friends dying, so with just a little bit of help or luck, these 2 could win. But that is really something for a Dungeons & Dragons adventure, to see how this adventure would turn out and how the 2 parts would finally come together. I mean, I know how it ends, but I would not want to spoil a whole story. If you would like to play this campaign, I do have a fully fleshed out version to play together if you would like to, and once I have tested it enough, I will share it freely. For now, thank you for watching. Let me know if there are any deep dives that you would love to see.